activities. Good evening, everybody. I hope that this technology works, so it's audible. You can hear me? Yes? Yes, okay, it's microphone. Okay. I am really pleased to start this night session of the Strategic Forum, which is, as you know, the roundtable concerning the strengthening of economic integration of the Balkan countries in the way to their recovery. The topic of our tonight's roundtable obviously is rather demanding. On one way, it talks about recovery, which means that we would like to find out some ideas and proposals which could help the region to develop faster in general, and especially as well with regard to the negative impacts which are coming from the financial and economic world or global crisis. On the other side, the topic of our roundtable somehow suggests that we should consider as well the progress in the cooperation of the countries in the region in the sense of CEFTA implications, in the sense as well of their approaching or accessing towards the EU, so the formal economic type of integration and how effective these processes are. So quite a wide area of questions are going to be considered and discussed. And as we can see, the atmosphere should be relaxed and is relaxed. We started with a nice jazz session, very short one. We are having some music in the background, and we have some panelists or the, let's say, introductory speakers here on the podium who will try to somehow shed a basic light on the topics covered by the round table. And let me first, obviously, to set the rules of our game tonight, and as well to introduce my colleagues sitting with me here on the podium. I will start on the left. We have here Mr. Becai, who is president of Kosovo Chamber of Commerce, and he is a doctorate student of several universities from Sweden, Spain, and as well from Kosovo. He has a doctorate or PhD degree, and present from 2005, he is, as I said, president of Kosovo Chamber of Commerce. Among other activities, he was as well Fulbright Scholarship Fellow, teaching different European integration topics and Southeast European relations at Kent College of Law in Chicago, United States, and was Kosovo National Coordinator for Stability Pact for Southeast Europe. And as well, from 2002 to 2005, he was advisor to Prime Minister, and for many years already now he is a professor at the University of Pristina. So he has a lot of political experience, practical experience, and academic experience, so probably his introduction will be really enlightening for our topic. On my left, second to me, is Dr. Minic Jelica, who is Deputy Secretary General of the Regional Cooperation Council in Bosnia and Herzegovina. She has professional experiences in the research and policy making related to European integration affairs. She was Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs in Serbia from 2000 to 2004. As well, she was Secretary General before that of the European Movement in Serbia, and she is author and co-author and editor of numerous articles, research works, books, etc. So as well, highly qualified person to discuss the topics which we have on our agenda. On my right is Dr. Samarđija Višnja, coming from Croatia. She is head of Department of European Integration at the Institute of International Relations in Zagreb. She was coordinator of a number of international research projects at the Institute and organizer of several international conferences. She as well was Assistant Minister in the Ministry of European Integration of Croatia in the period of 2000 to 2004. She is as well author, editor, and co-author of different books, papers, articles, mostly related to European integration processes. She lectures as well European topics at faculties in Zagreb and in Osijek. And far to my right is my friend and colleague from study years at the Faculty of Economics, Ljubljana, Mr. Marko Voljč. He has a very prominent banker's career. He started his career at National Bank of Slovenia. Leaving the bank, he was then 14 years at the World Bank in Washington, United States. Then, coming back to Slovenia, till to 2004, he was president and CEO of largest commercial bank in Slovenia. Most of you will probably know it, Nova Ljubljanska banka. And for the last few years, he is general manager in KBC's Central European Directorate, or CEO in K&H Bank in Hungary. He is as well author of some articles, conference papers, and beside all this, he is as well honorary consul of Mexico to Slovenia. So I hope this group will be able to basically give some ideas for our discussion on the topic of our roundtable. And I would like to invite you all, really, after very short presentations which the chair here will make, that you will join us with your comments of our presentations, and as well that you will try to put your suggestions, questions, and so we will be able on that basis really to have a productive debate, which will lead at the end to some kind of summaries, which hopefully will be used by the organizers of Strategic Forum for further consideration and perhaps for some further activities helping Western Balkan region for its faster economic progress and integration. Technically, as well, I have to say that we were supposed to have this discussion till midnight, but we were as well supposed to start a little bit earlier, as you remember. So I would not really be very strict on 12 or midnight. So if there will be enough ideas around and productive discussion, we will have a little bit of continuation. Otherwise, if everybody will get sleepy and not in a mood for discussion, then we will finish at midnight. But I hope this will not happen. So for the speakers here as well, I have a request, which means that each of them has approximately 3 to 5 minutes to present the basic ideas regarding our roundtable. And on that basis, as I said, we will have then a discussion. And before giving my friends and colleagues here on the podium the word, let me just give you a few ideas what we will probably try to discuss tonight. One of the topics which probably is important to consider in relation to integration and the way out of recession for Balkan countries is the question, what is the present economic situation in the region and what are the institutional relations of the region among the participating countries and with other neighboring countries and especially with the EU. We all know a lot of these elements, but perhaps there are some specific ideas and elements which are important to stress at this moment, especially because of, as I said already, global economic crisis, or perhaps because of not very clear perspective for the Lisbon Treaty of the EU, and as well by that not very clear perspective of further enlargements of the EU. So there is quite a lot of area to cover. With regard to economic situation in the region, I would like just to give you an idea why this topic should be relevant. If we compare GDPs per capita from 1989, so from the year when the Berlin Wall came down, so when everything started, with the GDP per capita of these countries in 2006, so before the crisis started, we will be shocked to see that only 2 countries from the region were able in these approximately 15 years, a little bit more, to go above the level of 1989 GDP per capita. So Albania and Croatia are above the level of this year. All the rest of the countries are far below. So all the supports given by the EU, all efforts for the cooperation in the region, all political developments in the region, they didn't produce really the effect which would be positive in the sense of economic progress. So what we should do, that's one of our topics and questions. Maybe somebody of you would be interested which are the countries above and which are below. Let's say above are Albania and Croatia, and below all the others. The worst case, unfortunately, is Serbia, still that year with Kosovo, which has GDP at the level of 64% compared to 1989. So the topic is really worth of our further discussion and considering. So the second topic, which I suppose we should and could cover, is related probably to outside environment affecting the Western Balkan region. This outside environment on one side is certainly related to the relations with the EU. We know that some countries are already having candidate status, some other are just having the European perspective. And on the other side as well, we know that the expansion or new membership in the EU is not really very clear at the moment. So that's the next issue which we will probably be able to touch and to discuss. The next topic, which I think very important perhaps to touch and to cover, is the question of the quality of national policies in the countries of the region. Do they do the right things? Should they change something? How they can do it, and especially how they can do so-called homework, really to prepare themselves to fulfill the Copenhagen criteria, and much later as well the convergence criteria, perhaps when they will be already members and will be able to accept euro. So the discussion about these issues will have a lot of special aspects and new ideas how we can really suggest the improvements in these national policies, I think, could be very effective. We can as well, in that sense, perhaps consider the quality and the importance of the progress reports which are made by EU Commission with regard to the accession process of these countries. Is that really that these progress reports are stimulative enough for these countries to adjust in reality their policies, their measures, and how much, in fact, these progress reports are affecting in reality their everyday life? Why I'm putting this question before you? Because we know from the past the EU has had the same practice, and still today we know that some countries which are so-called new members of the EU have quite a few problems with compatibility with regard to some specific areas of EU legislation and practices. So whether or not we can consider maybe some improvements in progress reports and methods of analyzing the progress of Western Balkan countries towards European integration. Among the topics which we can discuss and will probably touch on are the role of different international institutions which are engaged in the region. I will mention just few. EBRD, World Bank, European Investment Bank, and many others. Should we consider their role proper? Should we have some ideas for their better involvement in the region? Or perhaps we can just say this is not really important. We will see. So that's up to you to comment on this. And to conclude, yes, I would just like to say that very important for the success in the region is really the practical business reaction to everything what is done in the region. So among these business reactions, I think the role of banks, commercial banks, investment banks, could play a very important role with the activities which will help to recovery. Among the other issues which will probably be touched and tackled and discussed is as well trade issue. We all know that major trade flows from the region are going to EU. And the regional cooperation on the basis of trade is rather small. The question is whether we can support the regional trade development, if this could be really beneficial for the region. By my opinion, there could be perhaps better utilization of so-called rules of origin of products in the region, which is technically known as SAP Plus scheme, which allows so-called diagonal, this is a little bit technical, diagonal accumulation of rules origin. But the basic idea is that the cooperation among the companies in the region can make products which are still freely exported to the EU. So this scheme is important. The trade will grow if it will be properly implemented. As we know, the trade is engine of growth. So if we can find in our discussion some new ideas how to stimulate growth of trade in the region, I hope as well we will contribute to the better success, economic success of the region. Let me finish. Thank you for listening to me. It was a part of technical, part of, I hope, substantial introduction. And now, as we agreed, we will give word to other members of this chair. And as again, we agreed that we will start with ladies, alphabetic order. So first on the list is Jelica Minic, and I would like to call you to take the floor, please. Yes, I can help.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to have opportunity to address this distinguished public. And I would start with some specific questions typical for detective stories: who, what, how, when, where. So we are speaking about Western Balkans. What? Two key words are regional integration and recovery. how we discussed some mechanisms. When the timing is a big problem, time factor is very important for the region. What is the context, what is the landscape? It's not favorable at all at the moment. We had some recovery process after the year 2000, but now, in fact, the context for the Western Balkans development and reforms is getting more difficult. So every source of regional development finance, remittances, export and commodity demand, assistance and capital flows are now being affected. What are the responses? What are the mechanisms? What are the institutional framework of regional efforts to cooperate and to recover? On the one side, we have plenty of existing and emerging regional structures, initiatives, mechanisms. In the field of trade, it's CEFTA, then investment compact regarding investments, then SMEs-related initiatives, business advisory councils, then association of Balkan chambers of commerce, then E-Southeast Europe, B-Southeast Europe, then energy community, transport community under construction. We have transport observatory operating. Then we have regional environmental center, we have a regional anti-corruption initiative, we have NALAS, it's a network of the Association of Local Authorities. We have education reform initiative, we have Southeast Europe Steering Platform for Science and Research, RESPA, which is under construction, Regional School for Public Administration, Southeast Europe Business Enabling Environment Network of Policymakers. Recently, the regional network of investment promotion agencies has been established. So it's just a couple of them. There are about 36 operating initiatives in the region in different sectors. I mentioned those that are the most relevant for the economic recovery, but there are many others related to prosecutors' cooperation, police cooperation, etc., etc. So some of them are autonomous, most of them have been supported from outside, but the ownership over these initiatives has been growing. The Regional Cooperation Council plays a very important role in networking, in connecting all of these initiatives and trying to provide some synergy among them. What is very important is to identify the playing ground. If we want to develop some policies, some measures, we have to know who are the stakeholders, who is doing what. So we have the stakeholders from the region, but we also have stakeholders from outside. And I would like to mention several mechanisms that have been developed by the European Commission recently. One of them is Western Balkans Investment Framework. The other one is Crisis Response Package. In the framework of Crisis Response Package is Regional Competitiveness Initiative. Also through these mechanisms, European Commission is trying to put together different external players in the region. It means itself, European Commission, international financial institutions and individual donors in order to improve the synergy between grants and loans. And we have to use this chance in the region and to approach this now more articulated structure of foreign partners of the region in order to improve effectiveness of concrete projects in the region. I would like to stress that at the sectoral level, there is a great readiness and already cooperation in the region that has been developing very well. And if we would try to produce a graph, then if we look at the sectoral cooperation, it goes like that. There are, of course, some crises, like the crisis we had recently in CEFTA, for example, some attempts of protectionistic responses in the region, but overall sectoral cooperation is going very well. I would like also to stress the importance of some specific initiatives as the human capital has been identified as one of the possible big obstacles for the region in the future. So the countries in the region decided to develop ministries, related ministries, to develop a regional strategy for research and development. This is really an authentic effort of the countries in the region. So more or less, this is the landscape. We tried in the Regional Cooperation Council, first of all, to develop a matrix of regional priorities identified by individual countries of Southeastern Europe. We identified plenty of regional initiatives. We identified external partners for each priority area. So this is identifying the landscape and identifying the mechanisms. Now we have to build upon that. We have to develop specific policies and we have to make them more effective and to use chances that we have even in these difficult circumstances. And finally, obviously, the model we had, even without crisis, should have been questioned. It's a model based on external financing. So, and more on services than on the real economy. So these are the question marks and my proposal for our debate. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. So we have a challenge considering the number of initiatives and the need perhaps to rationalize, to make them work, and especially to see how they can be financed for the future if there is no outside financing anymore. Now I would like to ask our colleague Vishnya Samardzija to proceed with her presentation.
Thank you very much. It is also my great pleasure to be one of the invited speakers here. I must say that I don't have any experience with this night-owl session, and I hope that we shall be able not to somehow wake you up and to keep your interest for this session. I will start similar to Jelica, what we are speaking about, with the question what we are speaking about. We are speaking about the recession and the measures how to come out of the recession in Southeastern Europe. Mr. Blanchard, chief economist of IMF, recently said that there are good and bad news regarding recession. The good news is that the forces pulling down the economy are decreasing in intensity. On the other side, the bad news is that the forces pulling the economy up are still weak, and it is likely to be really a weak recovery. So the recession in Southeastern Europe started later than the recession in EU, but actually all of these countries and the stage of recession is different in those countries. More affected and first affected were those that were more integrated, that are more integrated in international trade flows. But actually all of them were strongly affected by decrease of FDI. And that's why I think it is important to speak about FDI. Transformation into market economy is not possible without FDI, and actually FDI is positively correlated with growth and technological progress. And the other thing which is relevant and which our chairman also mentioned, there is a strong positive link between FDI and trade. That's why we should speak about trade also, but also the third dimension, which is also very important, is investment in human capital, which is equally, if not more, important for the investment in economy. So where are the countries of Southeastern Europe in terms of FDI inflow? After several years of continuous growth, actually, FDI inflows to southeastern countries declined strongly in 2008, and actually it declined for 22% in all countries with the exception of Albania. On the other hand, FDI increased to CIS countries in that time. So there is less export-oriented projects. Western Balkans are not part of international production networks, which is very bad for these countries, and actually investment rates are substantially lower than it was the case in Central and Eastern Europe. In 2007, there was the strongest inflow of FDI in Southeastern Europe, and to Western Balkan it was 9.5 billion euro, and actually Croatia took more than 1/3 of this inflow of FDI. Albania was less effective in attracting FDI. For example, in 2008, per capita stock was around 1,000 euro in Albania. In Croatia was best performing. We had around 5,000 euro, similar in per capita stock in 2008, similar with Montenegro, which actually had the strongest, the highest inflow in relation to their GDP, while the countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina, Macedonia and Serbia were had a lower inflow, around 1,500 euro per capita stock. Kosovo around 10% of GDP in 2006. So the problem in these countries is that the FDI is not directed towards export-oriented projects. Structure and quality is problematic. There is practically no greenfield investment are marginal, and more is spent on construction than on machinery and equipment. What is very important, I think, when we are speaking about FDI into Southeastern Europe, is that geography matters, and that most strongest investors are neighboring countries, but investors still target individual countries, but free trade should encourage large companies to target entire region. And I think this is the key message. I think the countries of Southeastern Europe should offer foreign investors opportunity to serve a regional market, not the countries individually, and that measures should be made somehow to attract FDI into the region through different countries according to their specialization, but actually to inflow the FDI on a regional basis. Measures for attracting FDI, we could speak about them, are of course reduction of barriers, pro-business initiatives, low tax regime, effective deregulation, etc., etc., and of course more prudent policy mix, accelerating structural reforms. The countries are very slow in these structural reforms, even including Croatia, which is lagging behind, yes, and decreasing public spending, reforms in labor and product market, improving quality, etc., etc., of public spending. Another issue which I would like to mention also is trade. Exports are vital, of course, for growth and current account sustainability, and growth has to be export-led. None of these countries, including Croatia, has export-led growth. We don't rely on our exports in our growth, and I think that there are limited trade flows in Western Balkans, and Western Balkans still has poor export performance, low skill, and natural resource intensive exports. Therefore, I think the issue which you mentioned focused on rules of origin is crucial. There is, I will finish with this and leave the rest for discussion. I think, first of all, the countries of the region have to strengthen their trade through regional, through cooperation projects, because free trade area is an empty box if there are not projects for support this trade. But I think there is really a need to speed up the process of application of diagonal accumulation of rules of origin. There is bilateral EU-Western Balkans cumulation, including Turkey, exists, but the extension of pan-Euromed diagonal accumulation is necessary. It should be speeded up. It is a process which is not easy, but it has actually started another proposal, that another idea, SAP Plus, which you mentioned, which also includes EFTA countries, should includes EFTA countries, should extend this free trade area, and this is another opportunity for the region. The last issue which is important is human capital development, cooperation in education, research and innovation in knowledge triangle to bring the region closer to Lisbon strategy goals, but this we could discuss also later. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really sorry that I'm rushing you, everybody, but as we know, we are short with our time, so I would like just now to proceed to Besim Čekaj for his introduction. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to me as well, the opportunity which has been given to me to speak at this distinguished forum. I would like to put my point of view in between academic and political world and the real world on the economy, the real landscape of the economy. It is mentioned that economic situation in the region is bad, is awfully bad, having in mind that economic progress is slow and it's not with very big perspectives in that sense. But I think for such kind of panels it's crucial to discuss why is this bad situation. We are speaking about CEFTA, and great discussions have been all around the European Union and in our countries about CEFTA as a great opportunity. It is a very good written document which is not functioning on the field. It's not giving its results. I spent in 2005 a semester teaching and doing research in the United States, and I did research in particular this issue, how CEFTA and how the trade regime European Union is giving to the Southeastern Europe is functioning. Is this a political issue which we are talking around it, or is this the real support? And the results are rather bad, because I took a case of Albania, having in mind that the data was more available, and for preferential trading status that European Union has given to Southeastern European countries is not used. In Albania, about 75% of the products were eligible to be exported in European Union, but not more than 2% of them have succeeded to enter European Union, which means a lot of trade hidden barriers are existing for the region itself, enjoying a bad image and enjoying a bad competitiveness. Here is the issue of CEFTA. We are speaking about how great results and how we should, because CEFTA has been created with the idea of trade creation and not very much a trade diversion as such, but we are not having in the field free movement of people, free movement of goods and products. So it is useless now to speak how good all agreements are functioning, while all countries in the region are attempting to have a kind of protectionism in their trading relations. So basically there is no the real dealing system with the problem on the stage. And because of that, now we are having some of tentatives to have a protectionism, some tentatives of economic blockades, like we are having with our neighboring country, Serbia, and as well with Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is not recognizing any kind of origin of Kosovar products to be exported. And this is creating a lot of informal activities, or smuggling, better saying. We are importing yearly from Serbia in official chains around 200 million euros, and unofficial imports are more than 300 million euros. So are we speaking about the real terms, how to make these mechanisms? My colleague from RCC has mentioned a lot of initiatives. It's great that we have initiatives, but I think we should bring question mark to us, are these initiatives working? Are these initiatives grounded at the level? Are we bringing a lot of initiatives, already plans which have functioned in other countries, and we are just implanting plans in the region which are not functioning? When we talk about trade regime and regionalism, I've been trying to analyze from this academic world, but as well from the functioning side. Regionalism is known as a political background regionalism, which used to be Yugoslavia, which used to be ex-Soviet Union, and which did not function. And we are having now a tentative for regionalism with economic background, which should function. And we have the cases from Mercosur countries. When we had Argentina and Brazil in the 60s, they signed a free trade agreement, but never worked until the 90s, because it was a political pushed free trade agreement. When this market met competition from the Chinese products in terms of economic effect, they had to sit and to discuss in more concrete matters how they are going to function and how they are going to implement. So in this sense, I think we should just make orientation that and bring a question how we can go out of this economic crisis and from the economic problem we are meeting. Is the proximity school one of the key issues we should address? All of our countries are having trade relations mainly with European Union. Is this the real way to go out of the crisis, or is the real way proximity school when we should sit and agree with others in the region that we can work together? When the idea of CEFTA was put on the table, everybody was thinking that it's another attempt to create another Yugoslavia. But we have a big difference, because in political regionalism, we have countries which lose their identity. But in the regionalism with economic background, we have countries with identity, but with economic interests. So that's why the question for this discussion is the real thing that we should look European markets, and we should look the only thing in our agendas as a government to join European Union, or we should look in the proximity school to cooperate among ourselves, to regulate ourselves from inside, and then prepare ourselves to go to the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very interesting ideas for discussion. One is perhaps the potential protectionistic behavior on the side of EU, on the other side the dilemmas about whether CEFTA framework is really needed, or perhaps how could be better utilized. So quite a challenging debate. And now I would like to call Mr. Marko Volč to say a few words to us about his practical, probably, aspect of banker.
Thank you. Yes, I will speak as a practical banker who's been around, and this is the first time in my life that I'm actually addressing a serious audience at the 1:45, so congratulations to all of you for being still awake, which I think is a major achievement. I just want to stay within the allocated time, and I'm sure my colleague Andrei will remind me if I transgress, to sort of just make a few points. I was talking to somebody just before coming here into this room who attended the meeting last year, and he looked at his notes, and there was not one mention of the financial and economic crisis that we are discussing now for the past 6-7 hours. So that goes to show that the world has changed dramatically, and maybe we were not aware of the fact that big changes are coming our way. Also, I must admit, I'm equally guilty. Many of us in the region felt that this was a crisis generated in the West, and the West will be punished, and somehow we will be spared. We were talking about decoupling even as late as November, December of last year. Many people in Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe felt that the crisis would not really be that bad on us. Now, of course, we were all wrong, and we are still suffering maybe with a time lag, which means that everything bad comes later, and I'm afraid that also whatever good may come out of it will also come later. So that's a sobering message that I would want to share with you. Now, not everything is so bad, because one thing, as a banker, I can say that in practically every previous crisis, the banking sector was either the cause of the weaknesses of the economy, the instability, the imbalances, or was the main victim, because either the banks were not behaving very prudently, they were not supervised and in a way monitored in a very professional way, they had weak balance sheets, and they had no real knowledge as to how to cope with the crisis. And that, of course, then reflected itself in the quality of the assets of these banks. This time, I believe, even in Southeastern Europe, in the Western Balkans, as we call them now, things are different. Most of the banks are foreign owned. Some people may not like that. Some people may say not enough. But the fact of the matter is that most of the banks, even when the crisis started, were solidly capitalized, reasonably well run, and also, and that's a little bit of a recognition to the local supervisors, the monitoring, the supervision of the banking sector had improved quite significantly over the past 10, 15 years. So all in all, the initial position in the financial sector, including former Yugoslavia, was not that bad. There was also speculation when the liquidity crisis hit us, October, November, December, and for some countries even in the first quarter of this year, that not every foreign player will stay in the market, because there was also speculation there will be a differentiation between stronger players and weaker players who will pack up their stuff and go home, so to speak. Well, we're now August, almost September of this year, well into first year of the crisis. I don't see any of the banks, Western banks, leaving the region, which is a good sign. That means that A, these banks are reasonably strong so far, I should touch wood somewhere, and B, they are determined to stay in the region. And that's also an encouraging sign that people are not saying, well, forget about the Balkans, let's move out and go to Poland or Czech Republic, or maybe wait for things to improve in Russia. So foreign players seemingly are determined to stay in places like Bosnia, certainly Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia, etc. That's a sign that, of course, these banks, their parents, their main shareholders in the West, still believe there is a future in this market. Yes, there will be much more consciousness about risks that banks are taking. There will be obviously an effect on the costs, but overall we can count on a banking sector which will be, I guess, reasonably supported by the parents and reasonably well supervised by the local regulators, who are obviously taking their clue from basically supervisors in the West. Who will be the winners? In my view, I think that banks who will now adjust to the reality that the economies will not be growing as fast and as perhaps they did in the past, banks who will have the right appetite for risk, credit risk or any other risk, banks who will have a good balance between a local network where deposits will be collected and will be owned by strong enough players to be providing excess, additional liquidity needed that is not being generated in the markets in Western Balkans. Some may not have a clear strategy on that, and they will suffer. There will be maybe some new entrants. Each crisis is an opportunity, as we heard a few times this afternoon. And there will be people, there will be investors who see this as an interesting market. But yes, we're talking about regional integration and cooperation. Let's not forget that markets, investors are discriminating, and they will see better and not so good opportunities in these markets. So countries should strive to be open, to be transparent, to be welcoming foreign players, and I'm sure those banks then will also play a role when the economy starts recovering in this part of the world. It will not happen overnight, it will not be very fast, but there is money to be made in the region, and that's a good sign for us to be cautiously optimistic in the medium run.
Thank you very much. So I hope that there was a ray of optimism in your explanation, saying that foreign banks are not leaving the region, which means they see in the future probably the more bright perspective. So with this we concluded our introductions, and as I said at the beginning, we would appreciate very much any question, any comment, any topic which could be debated. Please, the word is yours.
Thank you. I'm a member of the Parliament, as Margaret introduced. So, first I must say that Mr. Wolski is an excellent banker, because he knows that you never kill somebody who owes you a lot of money, because he has to give the money back. So you kill somebody who owes you a little one, so that the bigger should be afraid of. So I know that the banks are waiting for the money to get back from the Balkans. But we must not forget that the EU is thinking only about EU. So the EU take into the company Bulgaria and Romania because they need them for investment, to get market, and so on and so on. Bulgaria and Romania didn't enter EU because they were prepared to enter EU, but now EU is afraid, what now? So don't think about that you will enter very soon in EU. For the next 10 years or 20 years or something like that, don't think about it. But in that time, probably EU will disappear, because, yes, you know, so that's life. But what bothers me that I haven't heard not even one idea how to solve the problems. I heard a lot of facts, a lot of everythings, and it reminds me on the old Yugoslav Congress when everybody was saying it was that, it was this, and this percentage, and so on and so on, and we will do, and we will hope that we will do, and we will try to do. I haven't heard not even one proposition how to solve it. Only Mr. Becai said once about working together, making a common plan how to go further on. Otherwise, you will not succeed in anything, absolutely. Looking on your countries, I think that a lot of investment has been done on the basis of bribing political people. That's bad. But that is what your countries should pay back. Those people will not give the money back, but the countries should give that back. So where to take it? And you have no plan how to do it. And instead of trying to sit together to make a plan how to enter EU with some clever plan, you do not have it. You are just discussing about blah, 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 blah. That's not the solution. And I'm just to finish, and I think that in this session, I don't know where are Bulgarians, where are Romanians, where are Albanians, where are Montenegrins, where are people from Greece, where are people from Serbia. I don't see them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the provocative tone of the debate was very good, certainly about the Congress in ex-Yugoslavia. I would say such debates that time would probably not be allowed. But anyway, just to say that there were no comments how to solve the enormous number of problems in the region. I think there were some ideas, not finally elaborated, but still, let's say, colleague Minic was talking about some kind of overseeing and rationalizing different initiatives and seeing how the further future financing could be organized. As well, SAP Plus and trade and FDIs programs and ideas which were discussed, I think, are as well the way to help the countries to have some further economic success. So there are some ideas, but obviously we would appreciate if the audience as well could give some further comments and further ideas. The problem which we certainly have here as the chair and as the audience is that we don't have all people participating from all the countries which you mentioned. That's the problem, but unfortunately always those are coming who are interested, so they should be more productive probably. And just last, as well for the audience, I would like to know that I will have to limit your debates perhaps to 3 to 5 minutes, otherwise we will be too long. Please. I saw your hand after him, sorry. I will give you a word after him. Okay. Thank you. However you decide.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first introduce you myself to the audience. I'm Blaž Golob, Director of the Center for E-Governance Development for Southeast Europe, which is an initiative of the Regional Cooperational Council that was mentioned before. And I would like to give a news that usually doesn't appear as a news, because good news, there is no news. And in the region, bad news is news. And let me say, there is more than evident a real will and goodwill for cooperation between the countries on very specific topics and policies. I would just give an example on cooperation in the field of information society development. When countries join their forces and with the government representatives set up the objectives that come up from bottom up, it means from the level of undersecretaries, not real top political level, to define where and how they would like to achieve information society development. So information society development is one of the areas that still in the economic crisis or challenge we can face it today has a prospect, which is more than evident. Web applications, e-services, and to minimize the costs of production, of doing business. So it is a good example of cooperation, it is a good example of how they join forces, and I'm optimistic about it. So how we do in the area of information society could also apply to the other areas of economic and social development. So they are good examples and I'm optimistic about it. But first of all, initiative come between the countries, not from outside, and this is a key. This is a key that was mentioned before from our colleague from Kosovo. And I think there is a knowledge, there is a human potential, there is a great scientific diaspora abroad to be used, and believe me, this region has a great prosperity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think the idea here is very important because it is showing that we in our debate should try perhaps to find some real interests which are practical, which could help the region to progress. So the information society development obviously is one of such examples. I would give the word to your neighbor because he was.
Good evening. I am Professor Dr. Vojislav Mitic, President Pan-European Movement in Serbia, and privatization. They practically stopped cooperation towards privatization. Just my experiences. We have two sources. Over the land, sources in people. And under the land, sources in energy, mines is minerals. Case Kosovo, Serbia. It is not a question anymore about independence more or going back against independence. It's the question how we can regulate dividing these sources for all people. That is our statement. It's one very important question. I didn't have any problem in communication and cooperation with people in Kosovo when I was coming there just to form with Bashir and the other friends some very important international organizations. I don't mention about that right now. It was wonderful. Why not to cooperate people? We can remember that through the war in Bosnia, in Croatia, Serbia, and Kosovo also, mafias, been wonderful cooperation from both sides. Why can mafia cooperate together than other normal people? So what's another important thing? Sources over the land, people. These sources need good management. Somewhere that management in political sphere is not enough matured to do it, and pretty old-fashioned story. So I think that example of Croatia is very good, how they very quickly changing leadership when it's national interest. We must, through international spheres, get support to establish something as a frame, how to go towards managing all of these things. We can talk more about this, but in bilateral discussions, that's the frame what I wanted to tell. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now the word is passed to the right side.
Well, practically to satisfy my friend here who was asking if there was anyone from Greece, I was, well, maybe by chance I'm here. I'm the Secretary General of Greece's Foreign Ministry on European affairs, and I'm responsible to a great extent for formulating the policy vis-à-vis the EU. One of our prime interests, and this is quite well known, is our neighborhood. Greece's desire to see the neighborhood on the road to Europe is well documented. It's not just a declaration. We all know of the Thessaloniki agenda, and we all know that more than $20 billion have been invested by Greek firms all over the peninsula. In just our neighboring republic, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, as we insist to call it, following the United Nations decision, the Greek investment was more than 1 billion euros, and 25,000 jobs have been created just in this small neighboring state. But I have a feeling, and our friend from the RCC knows it because we had an interesting meeting in Athens a few months ago, and I'm expecting the RCC Secretary General on Thursday to discuss something that I think is imperative. I think we should put top priority on building the missing links in this peninsula. There are lots of projects, there are lots of society associations and EU or other instruments for financial cooperation. But if you look at the map, some basic links are missing. It took me 11 hours to go to Sarajevo a few months ago. And when I had a long discussion with Prime Minister Spiric, and then I gave an interview to a newspaper, and they asked me why there is no considerable Greek investment in Bosnia, and I said businessmen cannot come here. There is no road, there is no rail, and there is no air. And the same was true until recently, even with Slovenia, probably with Croatia. And to give you a small example, something comes readily into mind. The Adriatic-Ionian corridor. Greek products go through Italy, can you imagine? In order to reach the heart of Europe, we have to put our lorries into ships, and they take 18 hours to go to Ancona. They completely bypass our peninsula, to which we belong, where we would like to leave our money, and we go through Italy. What is missing? Croatia has already built most of the motorway down to Dubrovnik, and Greece is now building all the motorway up to Albania. We have been given funds to our neighbors to some extent to help build some of these roads. We need to have an integrated plan for what is missing in the Balkans, and I think this is part of the discussion we're going to have very soon enough. The same applies for many other spheres, but infrastructure is absolutely essential.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very important issue. We didn't touch in previous discussions the infrastructure problems, and I agree fully that this is one of the very important issues. The problem obviously is who will invest. There is another country.
I'm from Montenegro, Gordana Đurović, Minister for European Integration, in fact from Economic Faculty, and it is my pleasure to participate in this midnight session, really unusual. In fact, my intention was to promote one good model, not really anti-crisis model per se, but very important for us. It is this multi-beneficiary IPA model, and economic recovery plan. Part of that is in fact this model for 2009, where we can detect almost everything what we discussed tonight. For the first, regarding European fund for this part of the Europe established by European Commission, then energy efficiency fund, then training and education for financial supervision, and investment in human capital. Together mixing a joint plan about what we have in grants, what we have in the field of loans, and how we can improve our cooperation with the European Investment Bank, EBRD, World Bank, and other financial institutions. And it is really quite a good document where our countries can detect where are weak links and how we can improve better planning, not only to respond on crises, but also to support our integration process. And I just like to share with you that we should learn more from that model of planning and financial investment in our region, what European Commission now support as mix of grants from European funds, part of co-financing, and better link with financial institutions. What is our problem? In this moment, I think in European Investment Bank or in EBRD, I suppose that they have better database about level and readiness of our feasibility studies for bankable projects, for loans, than we have in our ministries of finance, unfortunately. So in that sense, talking about infrastructural networking, we should cooperate more with them, because European Commission decide to put channel between supporting us via financial institutions. So we can't avoid improvement of our cooperation with them. And just comment regarding that we haven't planned, that we have no strategy, that we should be integrated together. I fully disagree with that approach. We have strategy, we have clear plan, but as respecting the Thessaloniki agenda, still on the place we have regatta approach with motivation of each country to prepare their own European road and go based on their own merits. In this phase, still very early phase of integration. Later, let's evaluate together. Maybe it will be one big convoy or two, or I don't know. But in this moment, in this very early phase of integrations, it's very important to motivate each country separately. If one country deserves one step closer to integration towards the EU, to allow that. And it's very important for our region as motivation. CEFTA also function. There are some problems, but in function. And we support all regional initiatives. As the smallest countries in the region, we are fully aware of all of limitation of revitalization of our integration processes. But we should support it all together, not only as just a sentence, but really as the only way how we can, through the integration, for the first, stabilize our region and then support cooperation via borders. And European integration is our only development strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion from the audience? Is it? Microphone, please. Here.
No, yours.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Any other who would like to discuss? Please.
Okay, because Gordana inspired me, I just have to add a couple of words. Thank you, Gordana, for saying that SEFTA is functioning. Because I'm Renata Vites, I'm the director of the SEFTA Secretariat. This is a very small, tiny professional secretariat located in Brussels. This shows you that obviously the SEFTA parties could not agree where in the region it could be located. It turned out that it is actually a good location, and we are also cooperating closely with the Commission in the context. We heard some of very gloomy words there from Mr. Becce concerning SEFTA, and partly he's right. Okay, the bad news is, he didn't say directly, but the bad news is that SEFTA, of course, is burdened with this unclear status of Kosovo, as you can imagine. Of course, I'm sharing with you my private opinion. I don't have a mandate to speak on behalf of the SEFTA parties, but this is the fact. This is the bad news. The bad news is that every country, this is in a way normal, one cannot expect of the SEFTA parties not to react with some protectionist behavior in the times of crisis. This is also normal. But nobody told a good news. Can you imagine that burdened with all these political problems, the 8 SEFTA parties could negotiate further liberalization in agriculture in 6 months' time? And whoever dealt with trade in your lives, you know that agriculture normally is a no-no. So if SEFTA parties negotiated further liberalization, it is an achievement. Of course, we are now a little bit stuck because we have to sign the so-called additional protocol. We have to change the agreement. And now is a problem who will sign for Kosovo. You know, our Kosovo colleagues, of course, do not agree with UNMIK sign for them. But on the other hand, of course, those, and there are 3 SEFTA parties who did not recognize Kosovo, they insist on UNMIK as a signatory party. So what I want to tell you with that, let's not forget that to the political dimension, there is always also a legal dimension to a problem, and often the so-called international community is undermining this aspect. So if we are having a nice political platform of inclusiveness and cooperation and so on and so forth, it's great. But let's not forget that SEFTA is a ratified agreement in 7 parliaments. So it has to be dealt with also legally. If we want it to function tomorrow, then a legal aspect has to be respected also. And I'm missing this in the debates. We are always with these political platforms easily done with, but there are many other aspects to the problems which have to be dealt with systematically. Otherwise, this is functioning, and I think it has a good future. Just one more thing, just to stress how important the timing is. And this is one thing also I'm missing in the debates. In 2005, when the agreement was negotiated, everybody, including the Commission, who was supporting very strongly this agreement, everybody could not even imagine that in 2009 or 10 almost, 3 of the signatory parties would not be the members of WTO. I thought Gordana will mention that, because it's a disaster. 5 years after this WTO plus agreement, you go and read this agreement, it's very fancy and very modern agreement, 3 are still not members of WTO. And I'm sure that in 2005, all signatory parties were sure that in 2009-10, everybody would be candidate countries. Where we are today, even SAAs are not functioning. So let's not be too harsh with CEFTA. Listen, if the signatory parties are negotiating further liberalization in the difficult conditions like that, please don't kill the agreement before it even started to fly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for shedding some light on limitations which CEFTA in fact has on legal grounds for better functioning. Any other debates, suggestions, comments, critics? As well, yes, please.
Maybe I just would like to sharpen a little bit my ideas about the proximity school. I feel that there is a need for further explanation. What do I understand with the proximity school, which is a key issue to my understanding for recovery and for the economic functioning of our region. This means that we should not look in European Union as a main trading partner, but which means we should work with our neighbors in the economic sense. And why I mentioned regionalism with the economic background, to find interest. This is a key issue, how we will go ahead. I agree with Renata with the idea that the CEFTA in the formal things is functioning. But let's talk practically. None of the countries in the region have yet accepted to sign bilateral agreements which will support CEFTA. CEFTA is only one agreement which should be followed with at least 30 other bilateral agreements to be fully in place, which means double taxation, insurance of cars, of goods and people and all other stuff. So we have to face the problem. We have to face the problem. It is UNMIC who has signed on behalf of Kosovo. We have to discuss very openly. UNMIC did not have a goal. UNMIC was a mission of peacekeeping. The goal of our government and the people in Kosovo is to create the state, the functionable state. Here are the problems we are facing on the ground on the daily basis. So the people in the region are mainly between wish lists, do lists, and to-do lists, because usually they are called for meetings and they express their wish list, what they wish to do. And usually there is a reply on this do list. This is what we tell you to do. And why I said we should be grounded. We should be grounded on the field, because we are the most international state in the world right now. And we have almost all countries, all experts who are coming there and who are bringing their expertise, which is different. And we do not have a coherent follow-up on the ideas. We have 6 months, one idea, then it's coming another expert with another idea, and another expert with another idea. And the key for us is we should do our lists, but to-do lists, not the wish lists, but to-do lists from our side. And this is why I'm touching the real problems on the field. To go for a company today to Sarajevo is a hell from Kosovo. I traveled recently by car to Sarajevo. You can imagine, by personal car, you have to drive from Pristina to pay 15 euros at the border with Montenegro. You have to pay 60 euros and wait about 6 hours at the border with Croatia. And you have to pay 20 another hours when you enter in Bosnia and Herzegovina with an individual car, with a personal car. What we can say about CEFTA and free movement of goods when we say about the trucks which should go. So we have to touch reality on the ground. Again, I'm saying that the key issue and the way forward is to touch the ground, to see and to hear people, not just to come with already made opinion and play the role. I've been in government, and I see now how our government is functioning. We have here Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Minister of Finance. They are in between to make their ideas, their plans, but as well to be said what other thing to do. I've been working personally in the National Development Plan, which was not supported at that time, neither by the World Bank, neither by the World Bank, neither by IMF. Because it was said, no, you should not do the National Development Plan, you should do a strategy for poverty reduction. I can really respect all expertise, but none of the people, professionals, can convince me that development plan, national development plan, should be replaced with a poverty reduction strategy. This is the way. We have to deal ourselves. We have to work economically ourselves. We are importing, the crises are imported in our regions because we are importing all our goods. And in some way, why in the region we do not have big impact of the economic crisis? We have a say in Albanian, which is say, wet people do not care for the raining. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw some other hands. There is one. Any other? Because I think we will try to finish perhaps in another 15 minutes. So anybody else who would like to contribute to our discussion, please show me now the sign that I will know. That's one. Milica, Jelica, you are as well interested too. Yeah, okay. Two. Anybody else? Okay, these two, and then we will try to sum up. Please.
My name is Vladimir Gligorov from the Vienna Institute for International Economic Studies. I just want to make two simple points. One is the question, what is the importance of regional cooperation in crisis? And whatever has been said so far basically sums up to almost zero, because we actually have instruments like trade cooperation, like further signing of agreements and so on, which certainly are not going to address the current crisis. So in that sense, there is very little that we can say that in the region has actually been done, or that the regional cooperation can actually do for crisis. The second question is what it can do for recovery. I think the key motivation for the EU was, when it pushed for CEFTA, you have to understand that this was not a regional initiative, it was pushed from Brussels, was to essentially stimulate investment with regional intentions, not necessarily trade. When you look at trade data and you do some analysis, basically the amount of trade that's going on in the region is too high. In normal circumstances, these countries should actually trade less and trade more with other countries. So the key motivation was to attract foreign investment, which would not go to a small place or part of a small place called Bosnia and Herzegovina, but it would go to a region of Western Europe, and then out of that, through diagonal and whatnot rules of origin, would then export outside and build up the export capacity of the region to outside. Why is that important? Because the export capacity of the region is extremely low, and that gives you The third question, what can the regional cooperation do for growth of the region? So first, crisis, second, recovery, third, long-term growth. That is, to my mind, again, very limited, because what you need to actually have is a build-up of significant industrial capacity in these countries, because these countries are completely deindustrialized, in order to be able to compete basically on the large European Union market. That's how from a growth perspective, that's how it should work. So I am all for regional cooperation, but we can't expect too much from this in short term, medium term, and in the long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I very much agree with your points, especially like your warning that all the initiatives and instruments which we have for regional cooperation were never meant really to solve the global crisis problems. And the second one as well, that FDIs could come into the region only when they see larger market of the region and free export to the EU, which certainly connects the issue of diagonal accumulation of rules of origin. Thank you very much for your ideas. Now, please, the last speaker.
Thank you. First, I would like to stress about CEFTA that after establishing CEFTA, trade in the region increased. Trade among CEFTA countries increased. Of course, this year we have the fall of exports and imports all over the region, all over the world, the most of world. So it is because of the crisis, but before the crisis became evident, in 2008, for example, for Serbia, CEFTA market represented 36% of exports of Serbia. I don't think that it is bad that we are selling among each other, because you sell where you can. So if you want to develop your export potential, of course you have to work on it, but you sell where you can. And countries in the region sell to each other. So it means that there is a rationale behind CEFTA. It's a proof that there is a reason to formalize the arrangement. There was no enthusiasm when CEFTA among Central European countries was established. CEFTA for Central Europe was imposed as well from Brussels. So again, I don't see the problem. It proved to play a role. It's a time factor. As we are not going to enter the European Union for 20 years, we have to do something in the meantime. So, as we cannot export to Sweden, Germany, and France, we have to export to Macedonia, to Kosovo, and around. And I don't see the problem. I wouldn't say that regional initiatives are inefficient. Every year, in transport observatory countries are planning together development of transport infrastructure, and they are proposing together their priority plan to the European Commission. There is one of the best regional projects. This is Southeast Europe Health Network with 9 projects which are highly relevant. Now World Health Organization decided to support institutionalization of the network, like food safety, blood safety, communicable disease, mental health, etc., etc. 9 countries take part in this project. So I wouldn't say that everything is so gloomy. And besides, if you read business news every day from the region, you can see that there is not only trade, but there is flow of capital as well. Buying and selling companies, joint ventures, etc., etc. So there is life in the region. Of course, crisis made the whole curve down. But what is the problem? It's a labor market in the region. Infrastructure, of course. I would like to join others who spoke about infrastructure. That is what has been identified in the World Bank study as main obstacles for the future development of the region. transport infrastructure, telecommunications, and quality of labor market gaps. If there would be more freedom of movement for people, many gaps at the labor market could be closed much easier. So it's another future story for the region. And I would like just to make a comment on what our colleague said about banks. Why banks came into region? Because they had higher interest rates than in other parts of Europe. So that was the interest. It means that banks that came to the region had benefit of being in the region. So there is interest of the European Union to develop transport infrastructure, to develop energy infrastructure, to develop cooperation in the field of fighting with organized crime. So we have very realistically to identify fields where we can have much faster functional integration with the European Union in the meantime, after these 20 years finish, and also to develop our mutual cooperation. And I would also like to stress not Mercosur. We have Nordic countries that are, most of them, members of the European Union. They still cooperate among each other. We have also some structures among Central European countries. So there is a basis for sub-regional cooperation even when countries enter such strong integration blocks like the European Union. So let us look at the things from less gloomy side, and we have to discuss about how to respond to the crisis in the region and how to speed up our integration into the European Union, although we are going to join European Union individually. There is a scope for common action, and I believe that we are able to produce some common responses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you made some really concluding remarks already. So I would just continue with some ideas which are part of our discussion. First of all, the major idea here was that EU is not going to be destroyed in the close future, so that we are all going to work on the idea how to develop the region and to enable the region to be good in the track towards the future accession to the EU. The second idea, which I think we have to stress at the end, is as well that what we have in place as cooperation instruments and policies is really was really developed in the period before the global crisis. So these instruments could be perhaps adjusted to the present problems, but we cannot expect fast effects and fast recoveries on that basis. As well, through discussion, I felt that we said that perhaps quite a few initiatives are in place, but quite often perhaps they are not all very effective. So there is a need to have an analytical approach to see which of these initiatives really work, which are perhaps overlapping, or which perhaps are not financially feasible, and which perhaps could not keep in present economic and political situation. So as I understand, there are already initiatives taken to do that kind of effort. As well, further, I suppose that we discussed that in the region we would need more FDIs, which would come probably in the region on the basis of development of the trade, which will be connected to CEFTA activities, which already produced up to now some positive results, which are hindered back by some legal obstacles and as well by some practical, perhaps, issues which are still used on the borders between the regional countries. So this should be really taken in consideration to see what practically could be done in liberalizing all kinds of traffic in the region. With traffic, with cooperation, obviously the infrastructure issue is very important, which was stressed. The problem, as was mentioned through the discussion, is that probably the projects are there, but the finances are not yet coming, so we will see how the present global crisis will eventually postpone these issues further. We hope certainly that this will not happen and that in close future the infrastructure project will be realized as much as possible to help general economic outcome from the present economic situation. As I said at the beginning, the topic which we are discussing here is really very broad. And obviously I cannot say that I really succeeded somehow to summarize up the discussion. What I summarize up was probably a part of our discussion. The notes were as well taken, so we probably will work on these notes and make some proposition to organizers of the strategic forum and to the Center for European Perspective, perhaps to consider these proposals and perhaps to take some actions for the future activity. So I presume that your effort to sit here in this late hour was really productive, and I would like to thank you really warmly for your cooperation. Thank you very much. Thank you.